I actually had this one guy tell me once, he's like, my job title is trash man and firefighter. I just pick up all the crap and I put out fires, and that's what I do all day. And I'm like, dude, that sounds like a shitty job. So often as restaurant owners, we are so focused on solving the symptom instead of the problem. Because when you're focused on covering the symptom, what's happening is you are just doing this stuff to keep you surviving in your business. You're just basically like, your arm gets cut off and you just keep putting a Band-Aid. Fires in your business equal symptoms. They're symptoms of a problem, and it is our job as the owner to find the problem and fix it. Symptoms are like giant neon lights pointing down to like, fix me, fix me, fix me. Welcome back to the Restaurant Growth Accelerator podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Scott, multi-unit owner for almost 20 years, and I now own Ownership, which helps restaurant owners grow their sales, increase their profits, and have more free time with your family. So today what we're talking about is how to make progress when you're just putting out fires all day. Dave is with me here today, our Client Success Director. Dave, has this ever happened to you?
Everybody. Oh yeah, I love putting out fires all day. Our secondary job is part-time firefighter.
Well, you know what? I actually had this one guy tell me once. He's like, yeah, man, my job title is trash man and firefighter. And he's like, I just pick up all the crap and I put out fires, and that's what I do all day. And I'm like, dude, that sounds like a shitty job. I'm going to be honest. And he's like, yeah, man, but I've been doing it for so long. You know, that's just what my job is. And I think he had 5 locations at the time when I started working with him and his team. But anyway, so what we're going to talk about is today, if you feel like you're putting out fires, I'm going to walk you through a strategy that I have used to be able to figure out, well, where do I start? What do I do? And how do I make things better? Or is this just going to be my life and I need to, instead of being a firefighter, just let the whole damn thing burn? I don't advise that. Your insurance company probably will not like it.
That's the opposite of a firefighter.
Yeah, exactly. So here's the thing. I've done this in a number of restaurants. We do it now with all of our clients, but back when I was first starting out, I literally would be on site with restaurants. And what I would do, and I've done this in my own restaurants too, I literally would clear everything off of our walk-in. And basically I'd have this dry erase marker. We had like a white front on our walk-in. And so basically what I did is I brought all the leadership team together, all of our supervisors, I brought our managers together, anyone that was in a leadership position or was familiar with kind of what was going on. I'm like, all right, guys, everybody just start listing off your problems. And there would be problems like, people not showing up on time, or, customer complaints, or like, product not being made properly, or, people not listening when I tell them what to do, or people not knowing how to do things properly, or, and then like, obviously I was like, well, food cost is over, like our profitability's down, our sales are not trending in the right way. Like I'd bring those things up that they might not see day to day. But literally we would list off every problem, and I would start listing mine too. Like, I'm covering too many shifts, and like, people aren't respecting the time off policy, and there's, employee churn. And again, when I had multiple locations, it would happen where one of our locations would underperform. And so this is an exercise that I did every time that this happened. And so we would go in, list all the shit that was going on, that was a problem, and here is the next step. But first, if you are someone that feels like you're firefighting all day, pause this podcast, get a piece of paper, literally write down all of those things I just told you, and let's do this thing together right now. So go ahead, pause, do that. Okay, now that you've done that, here's what we're going to do. The next thing that you've got to do is find all the ones that have commonalities. So I would get a different color marker or pen or whatever, and just highlight the ones that are tied together. So for example, products not being made properly and someone not showing up on time doesn't seem like they're related. Okay, so say for example, you've got, someone not showing up on time and a product not being made properly. Doesn't seem like they actually go together. But Dave, what's the commonality?
Well, it's both people issues. Training.
Exactly, right? So the people that are there, they're not showing up on time. That's a people problem. And then people are not making the products properly, right? Those are a people issue. And so same thing, whether it be your customer service stand, that's also a people problem, right?
Absolutely.
And so you could start looking at all these things, even if your portioning is off and your food cost is too high, guess what? That's a people problem too. So there's a lot of things that actually tie into those. And so we want to start to segment it down into what some of those core commonalities is. And so the way that we figure that out is we have to start figuring out by going a step further. So say, for example, if someone is late, well, that's a person problem. But, a good way to ask, say, if your products aren't being made properly, we would then ask a second question, which is like, why aren't they being made properly, right? So if it's not clear from your first answer what it is, go a step deeper. Why isn't it being done properly? Oh, well, the people either don't care about what they're doing or they're not trained on how to do it. It's usually one of those two answers if they're not making the products properly that are going out to our customers. So, okay. Or third one is that they don't know how to do it. But again, that relates into
which is right back to training. Yeah,
exactly. So it could be a training issue, or it could be a wrong people issue. But you don't really know which one it is. And again, if you don't have great training, then you can't blame the people, even if they're not. If you don't think they're the right people, but you don't have a great training process, you can't just blame it on the people, because you can bring new people in, and if you still don't have a great training process, great people will be mediocre if you don't train them properly. So, point is, go a step further.
Is that sometimes you might have actually a good training program or a great training program, but there's often phases too, right? So you just might have a dry spell where maybe a new trainer was involved, and you have a couple of people that are just not up to snuff like normal because the head trainer wasn't paying enough attention or whatever. So maybe it's just a short phase, but how are you ever going to know that unless you do an exercise like this and dive in and get to the root of the issue?
Yeah, absolutely. So take a look at all your problems, and if it's not clear where the problem falls or where it's related to others, just go a step deeper. Why is it like that? Like, say, for example, one of the things is that you're getting all these texts from the restaurant even when you're not home, like, oh, where's the paper towel? Or like, where's the key to like this thing? Or what's the alarm code again? Like, whatever it is, like all of those would be a symptom of training. Most of us would think in that moment, like, oh my God, like, aren't like you an idiot? Like, how do you not know this? Like, that's what goes through our head. I really don't advise you to say that to anybody. But that's what goes through our head. And so instead we have to realize that, okay, they're asking because they really don't know. So why don't they know?
Exactly.
Right? That's what we have to get to. Yep. So once you have all of those together, just start grouping them, and then you can rewrite them and have different sections, which is, maybe it's people issues, maybe it is like operations issues, or maybe it's financial, or whatever the case is, but just look at all of them. And then here is the big key. Now, I got this from a book, and I can't for the life of me remember what book it was, but it was amazing. And I probably read it 10 years ago now, but what it said, it was all about like prioritizing your issues and stuff like that. And so the question that it asks is, which one of these problems, if solved, would make all of the other problems either easier to solve or irrelevant? So let's give you an example. So maybe the issue from all the stuff that we described, maybe the issue is the fact that we need to improve our training, because maybe the products going out, they don't know any better. They're thinking they're doing it right, but they're not. Maybe the service is not where it should be, but they don't know any better because our training process was lackluster. Maybe they're not showing up on time because the standards weren't clear. Maybe they don't know how to do the closing checklist at night because no one ever showed them how to do it, so therefore they're just winging it, right? Maybe all those things are true. And so instead of having like 6 issues, if we actually fix our training process and we go back and retrain everyone and also make it better for all new hires that come in, that doesn't solve just one problem. Because you're solving an underlying problem, it's actually going to solve 6 or 7, right?
Yeah, it's actually getting to the root of it.
Yeah. Because here's the biggest thing, and literally I was at the airport last night, I was coming back from a conference, and I was literally writing something, and so often as restaurant owners, and so this is an email that's going to come out, often as restaurant owners, we are so focused on solving the symptom instead of the problem, right? So here's an example of that. Say somebody calls in sick, maybe somebody quits, and you have to come in and cover all of their shifts. You are solving a symptom of the problem by going in and covering those shifts, right? Because when you're focused on covering the symptom, what's happening is you are just doing this stuff to keep you surviving in your business, right? But actually focusing on the problem is maybe you're not hiring the right people. That's why you have unreliability issues. Maybe that's why you have like high turnover and stuff like that. People always leaving and always leaving you trying to find people because they quit without notice and stuff like that. So if you just keep filling in the gaps, you're always going to have to do that because all you're doing is you're just basically like, say your arm gets cut off and you just keep putting a Band-Aid. We're just going to have to keep putting a Band-Aid over it because it's not actually solving the problem. We actually have to like fix the arm that's no longer there. I know this is a weird example, but
wow, that's a good one.
That I know that went from zero to dark real quick. But having said that, if we're only focused on the problem, we keep putting a Band-Aid on stuff, guess what? You're going to keep having to put a Band-Aid on it because you're not fixing the actual issue. We need to fix the issue. So basically
constantly in triage mode and not getting to the surgery to actually fix the problem.
Yeah, exactly. So we need to focus on the problem instead of the actual symptom. And so often we don't. And so in this case, what we're trying to find is these are all the symptoms, but what is the root problem that we have? And the only way you're ever going to figure this out is by literally putting it on some paper, because in your brain, there's just symptoms everywhere. There's fires everywhere. Think of it this way. Fires, if you should write this down, fires in your business equal symptoms. They're symptoms of a problem, and it is our job as the owner to find the problem and fix it. What problem is there in your business that needs to get fixed? Now, the symptoms are like giant neon lights pointing down to like, fix me, fix me, fix me. Like, that's exactly what's happening. But often we're just...
Sorry, what I love about that exercise too is that you're involving others. If you're just trying to do it yourself, and like you said, even just from your brain, just trying to rattle through everything, you're not getting the full perspective. Engaging, especially your leadership team. Hey, what are all the problems you guys are facing right now? You get that list made, and the root problem becomes much more clear, and you have more eyes on it, more perspective on it, because no matter how engaged you are, even if you're an owner operator that is working in your business full time, you still don't have the full perspective, and you still don't see the same issues that others see. So getting that feedback and that engagement is super, super important to help get to the actual root.
Restaurant owners, before you open more locations, stop. I've seen way too many owners go from 1 to 2 to 3 to bankruptcy. I know because I was once there myself. The difference in owning multiple locations is how you have to change, and if you don't make the shift, it'll take years to recover. I took my 3 biggest lessons and put them in a free ebook called the Multi-Unit Playbook, so you don't have to go through the same struggles that I did. Go to the link in the description below and get your free copy today. Well, and here's the other reason that we involve other people. This is the Ninja Jedi mind trick that we use, because everybody loves to complain. Now, I normally don't condone complaining, I'll be honest. But in this situation, we want them to complain, because if we can get all of their complaints on the board, everybody just, spews their piece about this is a problem, this is a problem, this is a problem, this is a problem. And then we line them all up and be like, oh, okay, so like, here's all the problems, but if we actually improved our training, would that help solve a lot of these issues? And then they go, yeah. We're like, great. So better training will help solve a lot of the issues you guys are experiencing. Will you guys help me train better? Right?
Exactly.
Then they have to take ownership of their problems, because at the end of the day, let's put it this way. If they're in a leadership capacity and they give you a bunch of problems and don't have any intention on trying to solve it, not the right fit for leadership in your business. But if they're like, oh, okay, yeah, well, definitely. Well, let's work on that. I'm going to help solve this because it's going to solve all of these problems I'm currently experiencing. It's a great way to not just have you be the one that's driving this forward. You're not the only one rowing the boat. We need to get everybody rowing the boat in the same direction. And so this is a great exercise to get everyone on board. So that's what we've got to do. Find out the problems, find out the root cause of those problems, and then we need to get everyone on board with which to do first. Now, sometimes there's going to be a lot of different symptoms up on that board. Like I said, there's going to be a lot of different things, and there's probably multiple priorities. So again, we ask the question, which one of these will make everything else either easier or irrelevant? And so that's how we will segment them in order of magnitude. So for example, you could focus on your training program, or maybe you could focus on recosting your menu. But recosting your menu only solves, a little bit of a profitability problem. It doesn't solve the rest of the stuff. But by solving the training, it'll actually help your bottom line too, because people are going to portion better. They're going to adhere to the existing menu better. That still makes everything else easier. And so then once that's done, at least you know that when you roll out that new menu, they're actually going to follow it. Right? That is a better way to go. Instead of then having this new menu, great, they're not following the recipes anyway. So it's not going to really do anything. So we want to make sure we're prioritizing these in order. And so that is one strategy that I've used in my own restaurants. I remember going into other people's restaurants, literally clearing off their walk-in and literally writing it all down on this giant, white whiteboard, which was great. Anyway, of course it was a little awkward when someone actually had to go into the walk-in. But anyway, we tried to do this at the slow time of day. But anyway, it worked every single time. It got us all aligned on a plan, and then we worked on it, and then we went back and revisited, and we said, okay, these were all the problems before. Now that we've cleared these ones out, what problems are left, and what do we focus on next? And if you find that maybe the training wasn't the issue, maybe it's just that you didn't have good people, well then, you work on the hiring, right? You work on your interviewing skills. You work on those types of things. So tons of different things you can do there. So Dave, I know when we were talking about this, you wanted to talk about delegation as well, because it can feel overwhelming when you are a restaurant owner and you're trying to put out all these fires all the time. There's too many to count, and they're all coming all at you at once. And like every morning you check your phone and your phone's already blowing up and you're like, oh my God, can't I just get like 5 minutes to like collect myself in the morning? But no, you've got 100 messages coming at you, and somebody quit and somebody can't make their shift. And then, like Cisco was late, and like, anyway, it's all those kinds of things happening all at once. Always too many fires to put out, which leads us to be stressed, probably with health issues. Let's talk about delegation. And even if you don't think you have a team that you can delegate to, let's dive into that a little bit.
Well, yeah, and that's exactly the point, because I think everything we've talked about so far assumes that we have a leadership team to talk to and rely upon, right? So what if you're a smaller operator? What if you don't have really any leadership, or you just have like, a few shift leads or something? You don't have a full general manager, and some of it falls on you. So, that can definitely be a slightly different scenario. And, where you have the training issues or other things going on, there may be some accountability issues, right? So accountability has a big place to play, because if people aren't being held accountable to the little things that they're supposed to be doing day in, day out, shift after shift, like even just following their checklist properly, that very well could be a root problem of a bunch of small symptoms. And when you are operating and you don't have that leadership team per se, or a smaller team to rely on, the reality is it doesn't have to be just your leadership team. It can be your frontline team as well. And it is setting boundaries. It is holding people accountable, and delegating what you can. And often through that activity, so let's just say, for example, you have one decent shift lead and you're looking for a manager or something, but you're getting all these fires that you're having to put out, all these questions, all these silly concerns. And so, you can talk to the shift lead, but that's not really enough. And it's probably too much to put on their plate as well. So maybe you look at a few other people that are there more often than others, like your full-time, front shift leads, and just having those conversations. So it's kind of like what you said earlier about the Jedi mind trick idea. It's actually about engagement and empowerment, right? You're empowering some of even your frontline people who have potential or are just really rock solid for you, empowering them to also have a say and empowering them to also be eyes and ears for you and be on the lookout for those holes, right? Those problems, those little symptoms, those fires, and even asking them to pay attention more to that stuff. Just the awareness that you're putting onto them is going to help, because they're going to have new eyes and ears to those fires and bring those to your attention so that you can start to deal with them at a higher level. So I think a lot of it is really engagement with your team, and that can go a long way. I know one of the other things too is I think this is kind of related, especially for operators, like, so those owners that are really working full time in your business, is that you'll be sitting in your office on some downtime, right in the middle of the afternoon when it's slow, and you're kind of on shift, but you have a team there, and so because you're in the building, everybody comes to you, right? So you may have 2 or 3 other people working on the floor. You're in your office, and instead of asking each other the silly question, right, air quotes, the stupid question, they come directly to the office because you've got your open door policy, but you're just one of the crew a lot of the time because you're there operating. So creating some distance or some boundaries is also very good. And it's not that you're not being available, it's that you're teaching your team to think, right? So that these fires are not showing up as often or in the same way.
Yeah. So here's how to solve that. That is actually great. So how to solve that? Number one is anytime someone asks you a question, oh, Andrew, like, where can I find the toilet paper? Here's what I
don't know. What do you think?
Exactly. I literally look at them. I'm like, that's a great question. Where do you think it is? You know?
Yep.
Oh, well, I don't know where it is. Okay, so where have you looked so far? Oh, well, I haven't looked anywhere. I just came to ask you. Okay, so if I was a toilet paper roll, where in the restaurant do you think I would be? You know, and so literally we don't give them an answer. And usually it's like we have to wait like for them to ask like 3 times before I give them an answer. The reason why is, and oftentimes I will preface this by saying, I tell all of my team that I will be doing this in advance of me doing it, because otherwise they're just going to think I'm a douche. So I always tell them, like, hey guys, just so you know, like, a lot of people ask me a lot of questions that I think you guys know the answers to. And so when you ask me, I am not going to give you an answer, but I will help you troubleshoot it. If they're training, you don't start that yet. You just give them the answers when they're training. But once they finish that, make sure you preface that. So I would ask them that. Or if someone's like, oh, so-and-so, you know, called in, and your manager is telling you, oh man, like, you know, so-and-so called in sick. What do you think I should do? I don't know. What do you think you should do? You know? So, because here's the thing. People will always take the path of least resistance, right? And if you are the quickest way to the answer, they will use that because you are the one that gets them answers the quickest. It is easier than them having to figure it out and potentially be wrong, right? When it's easier to go to you. You have to make it harder to go to you than it is to go and try and figure it out on their own. Does that make sense?
Or ask somebody else first, right? It's because when you're in the store and you're sitting in your office, they don't necessarily see the same chain of command anymore, because if you're in the building, they're going to come straight to you. And so, it's absolutely that. Those 7 words, if you haven't written them down yet, to get back on that theme, like, that's it. I don't know. What do you think? You can use that in so many different ways, and it actually helps grow and develop your people by asking those questions, because they will come to you less frequently, because they will figure it out themselves. You are training them to think for themselves and figure it out, so they're not just running to you looking for the answer on a silver platter. And I think that is those 7 words have helped many owner operators that I've worked with immediately change. Like, within a week, it has drastically changed how many times people just walk into their office or knock on the door.
Yep. So that is a crucial one, and that's one way to handle it. Now, I will say it is harder for you to do that because it also runs the risk that they may not get the right answer, but that's also how they learn. And if they don't get the right answer, or if they don't know it, then it's probably missing somewhere in your training, which again, this is a symptom of a problem. So we want to go and solve that problem. Now, one other point I was going to make is that earlier we were talking about a leadership team. And so one thing, comes up sometimes, Andrew, I don't have a leadership team. I don't have anyone on my team at all that even wants to help, And here's what I've found. I've heard that, I would say, hundreds of times in my journey with clients. And almost every single time I ask them, well, did you talk to them about it? And they go, well, no, but they just,
How do you ask them?
they wouldn't want it. They wouldn't want to know, or like they have no interest in that. I'm like, oh, okay. But did you ask? And they say no. And I'm like, okay, so go ask. And then, literally just talk to them like, hey, I'm looking for someone to step up and have a little bit more leadership responsibility. Is that something you're interested or not? Like just simple as that. And oftentimes there's always a couple people in your team. There's only been 2 or 3 times that I can think of out of like hundreds that have literally asked people and no one wanted to step up. It's very rarely happen.
Even when that does happen, the amount that the owners learn from asking their team that question is still crazy, because they'll go to somebody who they think, has the complete potential to do it, and they expect they want to, and they ask them and they're like, oh, thanks, I really appreciate it, but absolutely not. I'm not interested in that whatsoever. My focus is this and this. I just want to be an amazing worker bee, and I don't really want to have that responsibility. And they'll have a personal reason for it, for whatever. But the beauty of it is that you know exactly where they sit, where they stand now, and you can, guide them to be the best version of what they want to be. And inevitably, even with that awareness, they kind of naturally step up a little bit anyway, or are more aware, and will still be a very useful team member in a higher role without even having a title.
Yeah.
But the conversations is everything.
Awesome. Okay. Perfect. So we've covered all of these symptoms versus problems. We have covered delegating to leadership teams and what to do if you don't have a leadership team. We have covered what to say when you keep getting bothered all of the time by questions people should probably know but don't. So we've covered that. So the way that I look at it is when you're just putting fires out all day, these are all the things that can be happening. And so what I would suggest is literally go and implement some of the things. Now, the reason I say implement is because I have people ask me all the time, Andrew, how long does it take to make progress? Andrew, how long does it take to change my restaurant and increase my profits? And I basically tell them, oh, it could take a week or it could take forever. What do you think the difference is? And the reality is, for them, it's about action. Because, let me ask you this, let's say you had an amazing new menu that you had just created with some amazing new items. They're all priced properly. You think it's going to be able to increase your profits. And so you've got it all ready, and then you never launch it. How successful is that menu going to be? It's not going to be very successful because you didn't launch it, right? So here's the thing. We could have the best strategy, the best plan ever, but if we don't execute on it, it will do us zero bit of good. So if you're looking to make change in your restaurant, there are only 2 factors at play. It is time and effort, right? So if you put in less effort, it is going to take more time. If you put in more effort, it's going to take less time. And when I say effort, I don't mean solving symptoms. I mean solving the actual problems in the business, the underlying causes. Because you can literally put in effort forever just solving symptoms and still be exactly where you are today. Because solving symptoms leads you to survive, whereas solving problems leads you to thrive. That's the difference. So if you're thinking what to do today, I would say pick one thing that we talked about and implement it today. And if you do that, your business will be better off than where it was yesterday.
And implementation is implementation. Put it in place and maintain it forever. Make it evergreen so that it never dies.
Absolutely. Awesome, guys. Well, thank you for attending. We will see you soon, and we'll see you on the next one. This episode is brought to you by Ownershift Training, where we help restaurant owners increase their profits while spending more time with their family. And if you want to know exactly what it would take to grow your profit margin to 15% and beyond while spending more time with your family, my team has a few spots open this week for a free 15-minute restaurant assessment call. Just click the book a call link in the description and we'll show you the exact frameworks we're using to help our clients do this in as little as 6 to 8 weeks. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.